Hey now. What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Let's go. As now we're at the midweek point, and Tennessee is prepared to take on and very likely pound Virginia as the Vols are a what favorite? Brought to you by Zen Sports. Has the line moved at all this week? I kind of thought it might there. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm well. What's the line doing on this thing?
I believe the line is Tennessee and Virginia. I think Tennessee is favored by 28. I want to say.
Yeah.
That was the early line though, so I haven't pulled the lines yet. I'm going to be doing that today, obviously, for our gambling picks tomorrow. It's still Tennessee -20. Tennessee is 28 favorite over Virginia right now. So
let me pull the curtain back for just a second. We considered having a UVA beat reporter on, and Caleb and I just decided, not selfishly, but just honestly and frankly, as to what you would like more of us than a UVA beat reporter, because they're so bad. I don't know how deeply we want to break them down. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to tell you the top 5 UVA Cavs to watch against the Vols. Also, we'll look back on the last time the Vols opened the season against a ACC team. That guy Nico's getting some love. Tennessee considered a tier 2 team for 2023. Nick Saban attacks the media. That's a real stunner. It seems as if it happens between 10 days and 3 days out of the season every year. He goes off on something. So he goes off on the media because the media wants an accurate depth chart. Josh Heupel doesn't go off on the media. He just doesn't give an accurate depth chart, which he didn't earlier this week when you had Cooper May still listed as a starter. He's not going to start this week. He's not going to start against Austin Peay, and I doubt he'll start against Florida. But, Caleb, that is just something that college coaches, with gambling getting more involved, they're just going to have to deal with. And it's not going to be fun for them. It's going to be different. You even go down a lower level in high school, and those guys want to absolutely hide everything. But NFL guys have to put out a depth chart and an injury report, and it's because of gambling. And now gambling is going to be more prevalent, and Josh Heupel is one of the coaches that's going to have to considerably change. And if he doesn't like that, then he's going to have to deal with it. But that's just the way things roll right now, because gambling is being so pervasive. And in all honesty, I had somebody ask me, it's more of a baseball fan, and I said, why are they so secretive? And yeah, I say this when I covered practice. You know, a lot of the media, I think I know more football than the average reporter, not as much as a coach or anything like that. But I mean, a lot of the times I'd spend 2 hours at a practice and really maybe glean one thing. It's the same sort of thing with injuries. Listen, if any coaches are out there watching right now, you need to be more worried about your trainers and the people within your program that post on message boards, and they're big orange Billy Bob, and they like the love they get from saying such and such may not play, or such and such may shift out to another position. Well, Caleb, that happens. And at least with credentialed, respectable media, you don't have that happen. I think that back in the days when practice was open, you would probably handle the Cooper Mays situation a little bit differently. But it is what it is. News leaks just too much. And, there's going to be a change coming soon. I'll be interested to see how Josh Heupel in particular deals with that. But also Nick Saban at the University of Alabama is not real pleased. So there's this guy, and you may or may not be aware of him. His name is Nico Iamaleava. That's right. His name is Nico Iamaleava. And we're going to get to today's tough question, which involves him being a very highly rated backup quarterback as a freshman who's just been on campus for a few months. What?
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right. So Nico named one of the top 10 backups in all of college football. And number 7, as a matter of fact. Is that accurate? Is that for funsies to try to get clicks by 247 Sports? Or do you think that he is a top 10 backup quarterback? What say you, Caleb Calhoun?
Not only do I think he's a top 10 backup quarterback, I think this list is highly disrespectful to Nico Iamaleava.
Interesting.
Nico is ranked number 7. There are 2 other true freshman quarterbacks ranked ahead of Nico on this list. One is Aiden Childs at Oregon State. He's number 4. The other is Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma. He's number 6. Arch Manning isn't even one of the 2 true freshmen. Like, I thought this whole class was Arch Manning, Nico Iamaleava, who's the best quarterback in this class. And you got Aiden Childs and Jackson Arnold ahead of both of them. I think Nico Iamaleava is the best true freshman backup in college football this year. And I don't think it's close because Arch Manning isn't a second stringer.
No, I agree, but that's way different than being a top 10 backup quarterback. I think it's kind of absurd. I think he's a popular name. I think it gets them more clicks. There's a freshman's a freshman until he's not a freshman. And Fred White will tell you that. You got no faith in freshmen until they do things. So I think it's silly that he's even on this when he hasn't played a college snap. He may be one of the top 2 backups, but ultimately we're not going to really know that until he plays some college football. I think it's absolutely absurd that he's even on this list, Caleb.
Dave, I swear you confuse me because you're a big recruiting guy. That's like your base. You've covered recruiting well over the years. Yet you're stuck in the 90s with the way you cover the teams themselves because you're like, oh, freshmen can't play. They need experience. That's not the nature of football now. You think, look, one thing I'll say about Swamp Kings Untold, you think Percy Harvin had to wait to get on the field? You think Jeff Demps had to wait to get on the field? How many true freshmen have you seen over the years make a huge impact early? It's not the 90s, bro. Yeah, Jamie Kennedy doesn't matter anymore as a celebrity.
I haven't seen, let's put it this way. You want to go back to my recruiting days. I think maybe where I'm coming from is I've been wrong enough where I've said this guy is going to be an incredible freshman and he wasn't. So Caleb, maybe that's where I'm coming from. I like Nico a lot of different ways, but he hasn't thrown a pass in college, Caleb. Ask me, let's redo this list after Saturday. And that goes for all the teams, not just Tennessee, because a lot of these teams are going to play. And by the way, Smoky Mountain Red, welcome. We haven't seen you in a while. But by the way, there's going to be a lot of blowout games and a lot of backup quarterbacks that get into the game. But Caleb, it just to me is silly to pick a guy as one of the greatest backups that is a freshman. I wouldn't even have people that haven't played on this list, period, whether it's a redshirt freshman or whatever. If you haven't played, you're not eligible for this list. Think about this, scale of 1 to 10. How crazy is that for me to say that? And today's tough question is brought to you by Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares. And Zen Sports, what you see is what you get. And with their cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash. For a welcome bonus, earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED. And you get unlimited 5% cash back with HOOKED. Keep betting, keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that. Refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports is bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. So on the crazy scale, 1 being Mother Teresa, 10 being Charlie Sheen. Where am I on the crazy scale for excluding freshmen?
I think you're insane because it's not.
I'm Charlie Sheen. Tiger
yes,
blood.
Yes, particularly because it's backup quarterbacks. If you're not a true freshman and you're a backup, chances are it's not chances are, but there's a possibility you're a backup because you lost your job. So no true freshman has lost their job. So I'm sorry. I think with backup quarterbacks, you do have to go with hype to a certain degree. Guys, just so y'all know, Dave Hooker would have been the type to say that Gerard Parrish should be starting over Eric Berry all of 2007. That's what Dave Hooker would be.
I would not.
He would say that Mark Levin should have stayed the starter over Jamal Lewis in 1997.
I would not have said that, but I will tell you this, that entire team should have been more run-based. And Jamal Lewis wasn't great at pass protection. So I get the argument. Mark Levine only had like 9 carries in the loss to Florida when everybody says that Jamal Lewis should have been the running back. Maybe he should have been, but he would have been in pass protection more. They ran the football with a game plan. I mean, I look at number 1 on this list is Garrett Nussmeier. Number 2 is a combination of Brock Vandegrift and Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. Number 3 is Malik Murphy at Texas, not even Arch. Number 4, Oregon State, Aiden Childs. Is it Childs or Chiles?
I think it's Childs.
I know, but I wish it was
And I
Chiles.
only know that because of covering Tennessee softball, India Childs. Remember her?
I know. I just wish it was Chiles. That sounds cool. Ohio State is Devin Brown. Oklahoma is Jackson Arnold. I know there were some freshmen mentioned, but it just.
But Dave, how many of these have actually taken? It doesn't matter if they're a freshman or not. How many of these have taken any meaningful snaps? Period in football. Does it matter if you're a true freshman or a redshirt sophomore and you haven't played at all?
Well, I mean, listen, you don't have to take meaningful snaps, but at least, Caleb, if you go in there and show that you can lead a football team, that I can judge you if it's not meaningful snaps by you went out there and you absolutely look like a player that could lead a team. We don't even know. I think he can. I would bet a mortgage payment that he can. But I don't know that Nico can lead a team. I don't know that.
We don't know that with a lot of these quarterbacks, though. They're backups. There's other quarterbacks on this list who are not, but there are other quarterbacks on this list who are not true freshmen who never took a snap. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Bryce Young took a snap in 2020, did he?
Oh, I want to say he threw like 8 passes, I think.
Okay.
I think I thought he took a couple of snaps, and you got to. I mean, there's garbage time all the time at Alabama. I want to say he threw 8 passes. I want to say that.
Okay, I'm just saying he was the first $1 million NIL kid after only throwing 8, 10, whatever passes, and it paid off. I'm not saying that Nico Iamaleava is a top 10 quarterback, but top 10 backup. With backups, you literally are stuck with a lot of guys who have never taken a snap of college football, whether or not they're a true freshman, a redshirt sophomore. I mean, yeah. Again, the only reason, like for instance, let's take this back to 1997. Most of these quarterbacks you have to judge off of is what you had to go off T. Martin in entering 97, which was nothing. I know T. Martin played some garbage time in 96. That wasn't enough for you to glean anything from him. And even after he played significantly against Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, people still didn't know what he was going to be made of when he started against Syracuse in 98.
Okay, but I'll say this. T. Martin, I watched him practice, and I saw him throw the most beautiful ball. I remember the first time I went to practice, and I saw this ball soaring through the air, and I thought to myself, that had to be Peyton Manning. And no, because I was walking in practice, and I couldn't see over the guys on the sideline who threw the ball, and I saw that it was T. Martin. I was like, that was a beautiful ball. He was great in practice. I could have talked to David Cutcliffe about him. He wouldn't have been on this list had I put it together until he played. Now, maybe he would have made it now that I think about it because he would have been a junior. But a junior that I've at least seen on the field is way different than a freshman that I haven't seen. So I'm going to correct myself. Yes, he would have been on this list, but a freshman that I've never seen before would not.
But this is as a backup, though. Again, it's harder. It's so much harder with backups. Your sample size is so small. It's harder to really rank them. I think year over year, I'm just going to say it. I think most of the time, true freshmen are better backup quarterbacks than experienced backup quarterbacks year over year. I mean,
well, I'm definitely in the minority. D says sometimes the starter is just that good. Dave, you're arguing with a stop sign again. Well, if I'm running the stop sign, then that's what I'm doing. D also says you repeatedly said you think he is the best quarterback. I think at the end of the day, he'll have a better career than Joe Milton, but I don't know it. I do not know it. And I guess we're looking at faith a little bit, not to get religious on you, but I kind of think that's what we're doing. And now ESPN has shared their thoughts on Tennessee, and they say the Vols are a tier 2 team this season. A tier 2 team this season. Come on, ESPN.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Here are the tiers the way they should be. And I don't know how ESPN determines this, but here's the way the tiers should be. Tier 1, you can compete and get in the college football playoff. Tier 2, you have a long shot of making it. TCU, Cincinnati, those type of schools. Tier 3, you have no shot. And Tier 4, you're basically Virginia. Is that fair? What the H brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best prices and service in the biz. Go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Support our sponsors and know that he'll take care of you and your real estate needs. So what the H? Why is Tennessee a tier 2 team? Can you help me with this, Caleb? Because they can get in the college football playoff. If you can get in the college football playoff, you're a tier 1 team, in my opinion.
Well, in fairness to ESPN, this is a 20-tier list. So there are 20 tiers.
Good. Well, that's dumb.
Well, okay. So Virginia's tier 15, funny enough. And tier 15, you'll love this, is at least the academics are really good. That's what they're labeling tier 15. So tier 1 for ESPN, there was only one tier 1 team, which is Georgia. And they say, basically ESPN is saying it's Georgia and everybody else in football right now until someone dethrones them, which I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know how you feel about that.
I feel like they're doing things to make it a talking point.
You feel like, do you think it's Georgia and everybody else though entering the year?
Well, yeah, it's Georgia and everybody else, but would you
do you think it would be, if you set a gambling odd, would you do Georgia versus the field, or would you rather do like Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State versus the field?
I would always take the field against one team. Even Tiger Woods in his heyday, I would have taken the field. There were times where they were pretty close to 50-50, which is bizarre when you think about it. But I would, I think Georgia is a significant favorite to win the championship this year? Yes, but I don't know how Carson Beck is going to be. So just like I don't know how Nico is going to be. So I'm not taking Georgia over the field, nowhere close. And listen, Alabama is readjusting things every time Nick Saban, and you and I think that ball control offense is out of style, right?
Right.
But every time Nick Saban makes these adjustments, what happens? It works and he wins a championship. If you want to go up tempo, if you want to go bringing in a transfer guy and Jahmyr Gibbs, well, he won a championship. But if you want to go over the years, he has managed to adapt, and the chances are he will adapt at a high level this season. So I'm not so sure that it's an easy call to take Georgia versus the field to win the SEC. I mean, Alabama makes adjustments and could be very good if they find quarterback play. You and I both think LSU is on the rise. I wouldn't take necessarily out Georgia against the field just to win the SEC. To win the field again, I mean that's bizarre to me to take them to win the national championship.
Wait, I don't know much about NASCAR, but I will say since the advent of the Chase Cup that started, I guess, in 2004, you're saying you wouldn't have taken Jimmy Johnson versus the field in his heyday during that period?
Well, he would have proved me wrong, but no, I wouldn't have. You remember Bobby Denton, the late Bobby Denton, who was the PA voice at Neyland Stadium. I was in a suite with him one time, and I told him, I said, why don't you give me 10-1 odds that Kurt Busch wins at Bristol? And he had won. We were at Bristol, and he had won like 5 straight times. And I noticed he was coming through the field, but he was in like 24th. I said, give me 10-1 odds on Kurt Busch winning. Well, Kurt Busch ended up winning the race, and Bobby had said at the time, he said, I'll bet you $10 more. That was a dumb bet. So Bobby forked over $110 to me in the suite. And but no, I mean, that was a dumb bet by me.
Even in the 90s with Michael Jordan, you wouldn't have done the Bulls against the field when Michael Jordan was playing?
No.
Come on, Dave. Like
Maybe.
1996, 97, after the 72 win team, you're not going the Bulls versus the field? Gosh, or Golden State versus the field when they got Kevin Durant?
You're one Scottie Pippen blown knee away from not making it. Georgia is one bad quarterback away from being a 2-loss team. We don't know Carson Beck. Would you take Georgia against the field?
No, but I don't think Georgia's a step above everybody this year either. So I'm just saying I don't always reject against the field. I'm not taking Georgia against the field because I don't think I got like 4 teams I'm higher on than Georgia this year. I don't think Georgia's making the playoff this year. I've already said that. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't take Georgia against the field.
Smoky Mountain Red said he was a good friend with Bobby, designed a couple of homes for him. I will just tell you, Bobby Denton was one of the finest men that's ever been in broadcasting and beyond. He was incredible, very fair to his people. Okay, so let's play. You've got the other tier 2 teams, right? So pull them up, and then we're going to play Hank or Tracy, which when it's Hank Kingsley from the Larry Sanders Show. Hey now. That means I agree with the selection. When it's Tracy Morgan,
That's crazy.
Then I say that absolutely not, that there is no chance in Hades that this team is better than Tennessee. So how many tier 2 teams are there?
So there are 14 tier 2 teams. So it's Georgia tier 1 and then 14 tier 2. So you might just want to, that's crazy that, honestly.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Let's run through them real quick and give them to me, and I'll tell you if Tennessee has a better chance of being a top tier team, winning a championship than these teams. So hit me up real quick.
All right, so these are tier 2A, contenders with recent playoff experience. 4 teams.
Okay.
Alabama.
Do I think they have a better shot of winning a championship than Tennessee?
That's crazy.
Okay.
Wait, you think it's crazy that they have a better shot of winning a championship? You think Tennessee has a better shot?
Crazy is over speaking for the fun of the bit, but I do think Tennessee has a better shot. Right now, I may see better quarterback play on Saturday from Alabama than I think I'm going to see. But right now, I think Tennessee has a better shot of winning the championship than the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
That's a drop I need. All right, let's run through these. Who else you got?
Okay, so Clemson.
That's crazy.
Tennessee just beat Clemson. That's easy.
Okay.
Oh,
Michigan.
Shout out to Ronnie Morton, his nephew. Absolutely. Ronnie Morton's a great guy. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Michigan.
That's crazy.
Oh, no. I hit the wrong button. Hey now. Yeah, you have to give them credit for what they did last year. So, yes, Michigan has a better chance and an easier path.
I agree with you on Michigan. Ohio State.
Hey now. No doubt. I think you would agree with that.
I think Ryan Day should be fired if Ohio State doesn't win the national title this year. So, yes.
Little strong.
Too much talent. Way too much talent on this team.
He's saying Caleb should be fired if we don't have 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. By the way, hit the like and subscribe button. Turn your notifications on. All right, Caleb. The heat's on you now. I think we're at
20. So this is
10 grand. You're out.
This is tier 2B, who are contenders on the level of tier 2A, but their playoff experience, who have also been to the playoff, but it's not as recent as the teams we named.
Oh, good gracious. All right, let's do this quick.
All right, Florida State.
Oh,
That's crazy.
all right.
Thank you. Thank you. We both agree Florida State, most overrated team in college football.
I like them a little more than you, but not nearly as much as the rest of the country. Go
LSU.
ahead.
Hey now.
I think they have a better shot. I think they have more proven quarterback play.
I do too. Oregon.
That's crazy.
Listen, if you don't have those big back daddies at 300 pounds on both sides of the line, you ain't going to get to the playoff and win. They might get to the playoff, but they're going to get pounded by Georgia.
Well, that's the point. You're not going to win in the playoff, but they might get to the playoff before Tennessee because they might have an easier road than Tennessee, even though Tennessee's got a pretty easy road.
Yeah, but I said win a championship.
Oh, okay, win a championship.
I will
Okay.
not make the college football playoff. You can get there like Notre Dame did under Brian Kelly and get the absolute hell beat out of you. I mean, yeah,
True.
that's fun. All right, what else you got?
Okay, so this is the last team from Tier 2B, Washington.
That's crazy.
That is almost, I mean, I talk a lot and have in my career, but that almost leaves me speechless.
Yeah,
And that's
pretty bad.
insane. You think, I mean, yeah, do you think Washington, aside from injuries or Joe Milton spitting a bit, you think there's any way that Washington at the end of the year is better than Tennessee? Really?
I think there's a possibility they're ranked higher just because of where they are. They're in the Pac-12, and Tennessee could stumble a bit. And also, look, this is a big – Washington has a more sure bet at quarterback right now. Not to disrespect Joe Milton, but, Dave, if you're asking right now, Joe Milton or Michael Penix, who are you taking? You're taking Michael Penix.
That's fair. Yeah. And usually I will go with quarterback play. But again, do they have the war daddies, as was mentioned on the message board?
Well, it's
No,
still
they don't.
questionable if Tennessee has the war daddies yet. I mean, that's just the thing. We think they do, but we don't know for sure.
Well, I promise you they have more athletic 300+ pound players than Washington. Now, they might not be as effective because they don't have the right mindset, but I promise you they have more talent in terms of size speed ratio on the offensive and defensive line than any team in the Pac-12. Do they play like that? I don't know. Well, I tell you what, Virginia's not very good, but we're going to tell you the top 5 players you need.
Well,
to
wait,
watch.
we
Yes.
still have a Tier 2C.
Oh, let's skip tier 2C.
Well, that's the Tier Tennessee's in.
Okay, all right.
It's schools that are contenders with no playoff experience.
Okay.
So Penn State,
That's crazy.
Nah.
Texas.
That's crazy.
Thank
No.
you. Yes,
Have
Texas is
another
crazy.
shot, Steve Sarkisian.
Second most overrated team in football. USC.
Hey now.
I don't have a problem with USC having a better shot at winning a title than Tennessee.
Totally disagree with you. Watched them against San Jose State last week. Their defense is pretty much
bad.
air.
It's bad.
Yeah.
That's fair. But Tennessee is not going to field the best defense in the nation this year either.
Yes, but they're going to field a competent defense. Lincoln Riley is the Mike D'Antoni of college football. See what I did there? Mike D'Antoni with the Suns. That's Lincoln
Pretty good.
Riley.
Pretty good. What do you got next?
Lastly, Utah.
Hey now.
I like Utah more than most. They play really
Think they got the
physical.
war daddies? You think they got those big uglies
No,
up front?
but I will make this exception. They've got the 270, 280-pound guys that play really, really hard. That football team played really hard. When I
they
would
play so hard. Oh,
I
they give
know.
so much effort. Oh,
I know.
I
It's
love
like
them so
when-
much.
It's like when they say he's very likable. That's the worst. Who was the quarterback that the Cowboys just traded for? Trey Lance?
Trey Lance,
Everybody
yes.
says he's very likable. I told that to my son. He's like, well, I don't care. You know, we're
Dave is,
Cowboys
Glenn,
fans.
Dave is Glenn from Talladega Nights. Both sides are trying really hard, guys.
Oh, man.
When rest in peace, Michael Clark Duncan is like, Glenn, shut up.
The next thing we're going to talk about is the Virginia Cavs. They're not very good, but there are 5 players you need to watch. We're going to tell you who they are next. Off the Hook Sports. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. You give me 2 minutes, and I'll give you a preview of Virginia that you need to know.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We are grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
So UVA ain't great. I think we could all agree with that. I saw somebody tweeting about them and about their game. And of course you had what I guess they use Vols or GBO or whatever, and it was ESPN, and their hashtag was like "Go Who" or something. It was their hashtag is really goofy because yeah, that made me think of the Hokies, but it was like by ESPN's PR department.
I think ESPN mixed that up. I think they mixed up Virginia.
Really?
I think somebody in ESPN's PR department really mixed that up. I don't know too much about the Virginia schools, but
what's the who? I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. And
this is a topic for another day. Who has the least sense-making chance of all college football programs? I mean, War Eagle's up there. Makes no sense to me, but
No, but have you ever stood next to that eagle?
No, I have not.
Just damn scary. It's like I don't want to be next to that bird ever again. I was in the student section when Tennessee was playing Auburn when I was a student. That bird, I swear, it was at least 12 feet tall.
Wait, I'm Googling. They say Wahoo. Okay. It's Wahoos was in general use around grounds to denote university students or events relating to them. So the students are called Wahoos, I feel like. So
that's what lame is what that is. That's why stupid. I mean, that's just bad. I mean, don't you love the fact, if you're a Tennessee fan, that Volunteers has a real nickname that's steeped in history, as opposed to I think they just made something up with the Wahoo thing.
Yes. Well, okay. Tennessee did make up the mascot Smokey. They did make that up out of thin air. They just wanted a dog and they wanted an animal because David Crockett does make more sense as the mascot, but who doesn't love Smokey?
Listen, I'm down with that. But the bottom line is, I think Tennessee, and it's not because I've covered Tennessee, I think they've got the coolest, not mascot, but what nickname? I guess you would call it the Volunteers because it's steeped in history in the sport. I think Wahoo is absolutely stupid. And Cavaliers, where does that come from? They just don't care about a lot of things.
Where does the name? I'm looking it up now. Where does the name Cavalier come from? Derives from the Latin root as the Italian word cavalier, the French word chevalier, and the Spanish word caballero, the vulgar Latin word caballeros, meaning horseman. So it's like a horseman, which you would expect for UVA because they're all elites from British time. as they were founded by Thomas Jefferson, who himself was an elite.
Yes. He was an elite what?
He was an elitist, just an elitist, Jefferson.
An elitist.
By the way, we made all the jokes yesterday with John Adams, forgetting the fact that Thomas Jefferson beat John Adams in the 1800 presidential election. I don't know how that slipped my mind, like completely.
Yeah. That wasn't the same John Adams, though. You know that, right?
Are we sure? Are we sure?
The John Adams we know may be old enough because he was loading muskets. Speaking of, we talked about Tony Muskett yesterday. He's number 4 on your list as we get to the top 5 Virginia players to watch. So he's number 4 on your list. Let's break down the rest because we've talked a lot about Tony Muskett, transfer quarterback from Monmouth to replace Brennan Armstrong, who I guess traded up to NC State. That's where he transferred to. We'll break down the rest on your list, and it's 4 Downs brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
4 Downs.
4 questions.
4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
So exciting it is football time, isn't it? Man, it's a good time. Good time. So we know about Mr. Muskett. He transferred from Monmouth. He's average at best, but he won a lot of awards at the FCS level. So good for him. He's number 4 on Caleb's list that you can check out on offthehooksports.com. Let's break down the other 4 on 4 Downs brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Support our sponsors. 50 years in service there in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. So Cooper, get us started. What should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you. What down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
Nailed it. All right. So number 5 on your list, I said it was number 4, was Cohen King, cornerback. UVA's best cornerback, Anthony Johnson, is gone. And Cohen King is going to have a long day on Saturday, as I'm sure the Vols will go after him. He's the number 1 cornerback in the spring, but I will go ahead and tell you, he ain't seen nothing like he's going to see on Saturday with Tennessee's offense.
Well, even if you adjust for talent relativism, which is UVA versus Tennessee, if you think Tennessee has issues at cornerback, you don't even realize the issues that Virginia has at cornerback right now.
Yeah, just imagine. Okay, you know what Tennessee is like when the year after they lost Alontae Taylor. So they weren't great. What Virginia is like, excuse me. They weren't great in the secondary, but then they lost their best player in the secondary. That's exactly what Virginia is like.
If Tennessee is the division in America now, UVA is the division in America during the Civil War. Okay, let's just go there. Like, that's their cornerback situation right now. And so Cohen King moved from safety to start at cornerback. Played sparingly at safety last year. Unless it's Jason Allen who demanded that he move back to cornerback. Dave, how often does a safety move to cornerback work out? That usually is a desperation move, right?
Totally. They're usually not as shifty, don't have as good of hips. 99 times out of 100, that is a desperation move.
Yes. And so I say watch for him because he's the one guy that they're really relying on in the secondary this year. But he's either going to surprise us all or Tennessee's going to torch him.
Yeah, Tony Muskett at number 4. We talked about him, 3-year starter at Monmouth, completed 64% of his passes for 5,600 yards, but he hasn't played at this level. And what down is it, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Malik Washington, a wide receiver. Why should Tennessee fans be aware of Malik Washington?
So Malik Washington played at Northwestern over the last 2 years. Went over 500 yards both times. Last year, he had 65 catches for 694 yards. And quite honestly, playing in that system and playing against Big Ten competition, that's not actually a bad stat line at 5'9", 192. He is Virginia's only weapon. He is their only offensive weapon in that period, running back or receiver or tight end. He's all they got. So they're going to try to get him the ball. And given Tennessee's secondary issues, you might see him sneak out and do something dangerous every now and then. I mean, I guess you could call him their Squirrel White. I don't know. But he's going to sneak out into open space, and they're going to try to make some plays for him. So they just got – he's the one guy they got to watch out for on offense.
So Tennessee has Squirrel White. Then I guess that would make Malik like rat yellow. Bit of a reach. What down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Cam Butler at defensive end. Should Tennessee be concerned about him?
Yes, I do. Cam Butler, Chico Bennett, who was their star edge rusher, is out. He had 7 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss last year. Cam Butler was actually the higher graded edge rusher. As you know, Dave, like edge rushers, it's really hard to quantify in sacks and tackles for a loss because it depends on which side teams run to a lot of times during a season. Cam Butler is going to be a bigger threat. Tennessee has some questions on their offensive line, as we know, particularly at tackle. So, yes, they need to keep an eye on Cam Butler.
All right. What down, Coop, as we look at the player, the number one player that Tennessee fans should keep an eye on Saturday in Nashville, which bothers me. It should be in Neyland Stadium. Nevertheless.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
All right. Who should Tennessee fans keep an eye on, Caleb? Who's number one on your list?
It's Aaron Fwimi. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Please don't come at me if I get it wrong. My massive apologies. Fwimi. Okay. Oh, French.
I just made that up.
Oh, okay. He is the guy that kind of makes everything go for the defensive line last year. And Dave, you know, you can attest how difficult this is. He got 8.5 tackles for a loss and 4 sacks. That's pretty impressive for an interior defensive lineman, quite honestly. And he's going up against the Tennessee offensive line that is without its starting center and has massive questions at left guard. So he could make some plays up front. So just watch out for him.
So out of these players, other than Musket, who has to have the biggest game for UVA to keep this close?
It's got to be Malik Washington, obviously. Because I mean, again, the defensive line can only do so much against this offense, as you know, Dave, because eventually they're going to hit the deep shot, and they have no options in the secondary outside of Cohen King. So the only thing they can try to do is try to score with the Vols, and Malik Washington could score with them. And so it's got to be Malik Washington.
Okay, let's go ahead and get this out of the way because I think I know where you stand, but I'm not 100% sure. Do you like neutral site games?
No. I used to, but I don't anymore. I think a bowl game is where the neutral site game is supposed to be. That's the point of a bowl game. Now, I said, and I talked about it a couple of days ago, I don't mind a neutral site game if it's just to open the season. Look, I would be okay with a neutral site game if teams play 2 Power 5 teams in non-conference play per year. But when you only play 1, I like the home and home a lot better.
Yeah, but by the same token, you don't want to go to well, you kind of do. I think it would help Tennessee in recruiting because they're not going to. Yeah, Tennessee
did not want to play Virginia. Let's be fair. This was a desperation edition. They couldn't get another Power 5 team because Oklahoma, the SEC told them they had to pull Oklahoma. So when people rail against Tennessee for running from competition, they didn't have a choice. They made the deal with Oklahoma not knowing what was going to happen.
No, but I'll say this: it's time to run from competition. Because you can make a 12-team playoff. I mean, it's not fair to the fans to have to go out there and watch 3 Austin Peays a year, but I got no problem with it because you still make the playoff. And at the end of the day, if you're in the playoff, you got a chance to win a championship, and you're not going to look back at a game in September and it's Austin Peay and think, well, that game was kind of boring. The tailgate was nice, but the game got out of hand and we left at halftime, but we won a national title. I mean, nobody's going to say that. So now I'm all for running from the competition. I said the exact opposite a while back, but listen, if you want to play a tough schedule and toughen up your team, I think there's an argument for that. If you want to play an easier schedule to make sure you're in the playoff, I think there's an argument for that. I think both have merit, and I don't think it's a clear-cut one side or the other is the correct decision to make. So this isn't the first time that Tennessee has opened the season versus an ACC team in a neutral site. It happened before 2017 Georgia Tech. So what do you recall about that game? what similarities are there, Caleb? Because Tennessee is facing a team that they are better than, even though that wasn't the best of times for Tennessee. Their roster should have been significantly better than the Yellow Jackets. How does this compare and contrast to the last time Tennessee opened a season versus an ACC team at a neutral site?
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because it's painful memories for Tennessee fans. They did beat Georgia Tech, but they won 42-41 in double overtime. And Dave, honestly, one of the luckiest wins they ever had in the history of the program. They were moving on from the Josh Dobbs era. They had underachieved the year before, not winning the East. And then Butch Jones went into his cliche mode saying, it's okay we didn't win the East because our players are champions of life. And then their recruiting suffered. And Butch Jones said, we're not looking for 5-star players. We want 5-star hearts. Yeah, and then at SEC Media Days, heading into that year, he said, I don't look at last year as a disappointment. And it's like, it was a disappointment last year. You didn't win the East and you were a top 10 team to start the year. You're moving on from Josh Dobbs. It was Quentin Dormady, Jared Garantano. He made the move to start Quentin Dormady. Dormady actually played okay. Marquez Callaway played okay. John Kelly played okay. Tennessee had all offseason to prepare for the triple option and couldn't figure out how to stop it. The only reason Georgia Tech lost that game, they were up 28-21 with a couple of minutes left to go in the game. They had just gotten a first down to secure the deal, and their running back didn't go down, and Rashawn Golden forced a fumble, and Tennessee recovered and then had a game-tying drive. And then in the second overtime, Georgia Tech went for the win after scoring a touchdown. Darrell Taylor sold out to the right, and in the only stop Tennessee made all day on the triple option was on that play where he sold out to the right, and they got the stop. Very similar, Dave, to 2006 Air Force when they went for 2 in the win. And I'm sure you remember Xavier Mitchell sold out to the left, if I remember. And it was like if Air Force had gone the other way, they would have won that game. But
let me ask you this. Is a Nashville game really a neutral site game? And that question was on the message board. Is it really a neutral site game, Caleb?
No, Tennessee. But
I mean, I know they'll have the fans there, but it's not going to be as loud. Listen, if you're playing a significant team, a really good team, let's say Ohio State. Yes, I mean, I've been to Nissan Stadium when it was called something else, but you're not going to have the crowd noise be a factor. It's more open. I'm sure you've been there too as well, Caleb, than Neyland, which is straight up, closed off, and loud. But the flip side is, and I wonder where you'll go here, you do get a little more recruiting exposure in Nashville, which is a growing town. We could argue whether or not it's a good recruiting town for Tennessee. But A, is this even a neutral site game? B, is it good for recruiting to have a game in Nashville once every couple of years? Or does it matter?
So I'm going to laugh on this. Before I get to that, because we were talking about the Georgia Tech game, they played Georgia Tech in in Atlanta that year, but it was considered a neutral site game, even though Georgia Tech, their home is in Atlanta, but it was a home game for Tennessee because they had 3/4 of the crowd in that game. So no, it's not a neutral site game. It's a home game for Tennessee. I think they wrote a pretty big check to Virginia to get that to be a neutral site game in Nashville, if I'm not mistaken. 2, I would ask you this actually more than you would ask. I would have you ask me, because does playing in a fertile recruiting ground like once every 2 or 3 years matter anymore like it used to, given the exposure on national television or region or online or anything like that? Is that like really a thing? Do kids really think like, I saw this team play at Nashville one time and now I don't want to go play for them?
I mean, listen, you have to go out there and play really well. And you also have to, I think you would want to schedule an opponent that you're definitely going to beat. The worst thing in the world for recruiting in Nashville, it would be if Tennessee showed up, laid an egg, and lost, or just won 17-16 or something goofy like that. I mean, that's worst case scenario, right? So you open yourself up to that possibility if Virginia plays the game of their life. But does a kid say, I saw this team in my hometown, so I'm going to go there? Probably not. I don't know that makes a big difference. I do think, though,
I mean, it used to, but not anymore.
Yeah, and I do think, though, that you'll see a ton of people You'll see a ton of promotion. If we got anybody in Nashville, I'm curious. A great point by Travis. West Tennessee people can see the Vols play closer and easier to home. But I ask you this: is there anybody in Nashville? Are there billboards about the game, which can help in recruiting? Tennessee's in your face as you drive down the road, and your mom's taking you to school, and you're 16 or 17. Is there extra promo? And maybe we'll get Brent Doherty, our friend, on, or Ron Slay, our friend, on later in the week. Is there a lot of promo that goes on in Nashville, the city, because the game is there? And I'm talking about pregame hype that brings people in. Let me ask you this question. If you were to set up, I tell you, Caleb Calhoun, you're the athletic director. You have to set up one neutral site game per year. So you got to start that next year. What's it going to be? You give me the perfect one in terms of recruiting against a team that's good enough that people are going to want to watch, but you're not going to accidentally spit the bid on. I give you one team, one site, Caleb. What is it?
Well, now that they don't run the triple option and Tennessee has a good coach, it's Georgia Tech and Atlanta. And I'll tell you exactly why it's Georgia Tech and Atlanta. Atlanta's the best recruiting ground. You're going to beat Georgia Tech. But here's the big thing. And I know this growing up in Memphis because this helped Tennessee recruit Memphis back in the day. Memphis was the one football program that could get home and homes with bigger schools. And the reason is like an Arkansas or a Tennessee or an Ole Miss, Dave, you know this, they play Memphis in Memphis. They're going to have more fans at that game than Memphis will. And
True.
So you can, if you're recruiting Memphis, you can invite local kids to that game, have it not count as an official visit, but it's like a home game for your team. And I think if Tennessee plays Georgia Tech, they're recruiting some Atlanta kids. They could honestly invite kids to that game, not be an official visit, and the place is loaded with Tennessee fans at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I think that's the selling point that, and I mean, again, I'd willingly play Georgia Tech at their home field every year. Now, I'd do it at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, honestly, but you play it at Georgia Tech, Dave, you and I know, it's going to be more Tennessee fans than Georgia Tech fans there every time.
I'm going to give you one that's the all-time best, and you can never top it if you live to be 120 years old. You ready?
Ready.
It's when Lane Kiffin was at FAU, and you play in Miami, neutral site game, and you play Lane Kiffin. You get a ton of hype from that. Kiffin would have made the administration take that game, and you have all kinds of exposure in South Florida. Beat that.
Will your fans fill the stadium in South? Will Tennessee fans make the travel?
Oh, heck yeah. This is the end of the summer. You go to Miami to kick off the year. And Miami's a pretty cool place this time of year. That would have been the absolute best one.
I got a better idea.
And you're definitely going to win because your talent's so much better than they had at FAU.
Well, that's where I'm going. How about just play Miami there? Miami's not a good program anymore. You're definitely going to beat Miami now. And you know you're going to have more fans in Miami. You covered that Miami game in 2003, and their fans, I felt like there were almost as many Tennessee fans at that game in Miami as Miami fans.
There were a lot of Miami fans at the time because it was basically in the middle of it's a weird stadium in the middle of like a big neighborhood. It's very odd. So there's tailgating literally in the front yards of people's homes. It's very bizarre. So there was a strong Miami contingent. Nowadays they play at the Hard Rock Casino. By the way, worst casino ever. Do not go there. Do not support the Hard Rock Casino. They don't give free drinks, and they don't have dice tables. You have to pay for your Diet Coke. Okay, so don't go there. But nowadays, their support's very bad because it's 45 minutes from campus. So that's a fine one. I'll roll with that. Play Miami, call it a neutral site game. They feel good about themselves, but you get exposure in South Florida. You're probably going to beat them. And
fans nowadays.
Yeah, and the Orange Bowl, I guess I'll push back a little bit on Tennessee dominating the Orange Bowl back in, was that 2001?
2003 when they were in Miami. No, I didn't see the fans dominated. I just felt that they were competitive with Miami when Miami was at their heyday, at their peak. And the Tennessee fans were competitive.
It was probably 70-30, 60-40 Miami fans, which isn't bad on the road. It means that your offense is never going to get thrown off by crowd noise if you're anywhere close to 50-50, and it was at least comparable. But no, I love that. I think that's a great idea. But as a whole, I'm totally against neutral site games. And I can't tell you that there's another neutral site game that I can even think of.
Would you consider Tulane and New Orleans, or is LSU getting those kids no matter what?
I think LSU gets those kids no matter what. So the two that, and I think you came up with both of them, Miami at the Hard Rock Casino Stadium, whatever it's called, I would play that game, call it a neutral site game. And if you want to, even though it would be a home game for Miami, and not worry about the return trip, because that'd be the Miami hang up. They wouldn't want to make the return trip where they are as a program. So call it a neutral site game. Yeah, that's fine. Go play down there, get the exposure and recruiting. And then the other one would be Georgia Tech in Atlanta. The next one would be somebody in Nashville, but that to me is like a big fall off because of what we've said. We talked about it. You're going to get plenty of exposure in Nashville no matter what.
And I think, I'm just going to be honest, I think Birmingham and Memphis are better spots than Nashville, because Nashville, Tennessee has a lock on Nashville kids already. Like, Dave, let's be honest. If Tennessee wants a Nashville kid, they get a Nashville kid. That's just how it goes, particularly when they're rolling. Memphis and Birmingham are smaller cities, but you got to compete a little, or even Jackson. I mean, look, we talk about recruiting all the time. We always forget this. Mississippi's a really underrated state for football recruiting. I think they're number one in NFL players per capita. They're just not a big state. Yep. And I mean, could you imagine, like, how about go play Southern Miss in Jackson and just fill up the stadium there?
I don't hate that. I might like that more than Nashville.
Yeah, I think Jackson, Birmingham, and Memphis are better spots than Nashville, because Tennessee has a lock on Nashville already, whereas they don't have a lock on Memphis, Jackson, or Birmingham.
Would a neutral site in Memphis be better than Nashville, all things being equal?
I think so. Only
huge dump though.
Liberty Bowl sucks. It's a horrible stadium. It's a terrible stadium. It's
the only
absolutely atrocious stadium.
Only time I've been late for a game because somebody couldn't unlock the gate, and I got John Adams saying, "Well, don't be late ever for a game."
And also, we talk about, you're right, Nashville gives West Tennessee people. Look, having been there, Memphis literally got home and homes with people because they knew that that would sell their football program. So, yeah, I think that the home and this, Dave, Calipari killed the series with Tennessee in basketball because he was tired of Tennessee playing in the FedEx Forum every other year and filling up the stadium with Tennessee fans, and that was going to make an impact recruiting Memphis kids. And then Josh Pastner did the same thing. And
well, I don't have a problem with
North Carolina
Memphis,
and Charlotte,
except for the Liberty Bowl. I'm kind of okay with that. I just don't think that. Yeah, I would be okay with that. At the Panthers Stadium, I would be okay with that. I think that's in the top 5. I think that's okay. All right, so Nick Saban goes on a rant again, why it very well could affect Josh Heupel's attention to or approach to the way he visits with the media. 90 seconds. We'll be back with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
For Candace, I was really heavy into the drug culture. I was selling drugs. I was just constantly in pain. I was missing like a good support system in my life. Candace has given me everything that I need in order to successfully have a wonderful recovery, in order to have a life that I didn't even know was possible before. And it's not just about me anymore, and I love that. I absolutely love it.
You can take your life back. Call Cadis today.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Who's this guy?
Hello, Wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, so Nick Saban goes on a rant, stunner. Typically does this about 10 to 3 days out of the opener, whether it's rat poison or whatever. And he'll do the same thing. Wait and see. It'll be mid-October. That's what he does. I'm not saying it's good or bad because you can't argue with his success. However, his latest rant could actually affect Josh Heupel. So let's talk about this. He attacks the media for wanting a depth chart, says it creates a distraction. This is the quote. I know your number one focus is not on the game. It's on the depth chart. Look, there's a lot of competition on the team. When we put a depth chart out, you all think it's like final, like it's etched in stone, and it's going to be way forevermore just because we come out of fall camp and that's where it is. Creates a lot of distractions on our team, creates a lot of guys thinking, well, this guy won the job now and I'm not going to play or whatever. And quite frankly, we don't need that. Well, that's a bunch of bull. That's a bunch of
Say it the way Nick Saban would say it, though. You said it very nicely.
Yeah, I don't know that I can do a Saban impression. I'll work on that. But that's a bunch of bull. Guys know who's going to play more, who's going to start, who has the edge. Telling the media that is absolutely non-consequential to what happens within the locker room and on that football team. Has no effect whatsoever. And I'll tell you this. If Nick Saban wants to go off on the media, it's not for the sake of he's frustrated by the media. He is telling his players with this quote, if you're not first string on the opening depth chart, then don't worry. You can end up winning a job later or a starting job later down the line. Now, how does this affect Tennessee? Well, how it affects Tennessee because of this, and Caleb, I want to get to is his shtick getting old, Nick Saban. But Josh Heupel, in a different sort of way, wants to control the media and put out fake depth charts of Cooper Mays starting and that sort of thing. And I get it. Okay. I understand doing that. But at some point, and we talked about the Big Ten doing this with an injury report and a depth chart, the rules of college sports are going to tighten on these coaches. Nick Saban's old school. Josh Heupel will adapt. But if you start getting to the point where you have to list somebody as questionable and doubtful, and you could potentially get fined, so this isn't out of the realm of possibility. If you don't adhere to the rules, then it's going to affect how Josh Heupel puts out depth charts and deals with the media. Because, listen, there's no way that Cooper Mays is starting on Saturday, but he's listed as a starter. So this would have an effect on Josh Heupel, no question about it.
Absolutely, it would. I thought about this yesterday, Dave, and I want to know what your thoughts are with the depth chart, and I want to know if this has changed things a little bit. I somewhat agree that players know if they're going to start or not, but sometimes I think coaches keep things close to the vest and don't tell their players their plans like in the game. I don't think CJ Leak knew he was going to get pulled for James Banks after 2 series at Georgia in 2002.
Okay, that's a good example. There are some times that you are hiding things from your players, but I think you would agree that's about 1 in 100.
Well, my question that what I was going to ask you is, do you think that's more common now and coaches are more vague with their players because of the transfer portal? And so they don't want their players to think they've lost a starting job because then they'll go ahead and hit the transfer portal and they want that player for depth. I'm
going to say no, because I think that you can transfer and play right away. So I mean, listen, if you were to lose your starting job and you're a Tennessee football player or a player anywhere, you could still go somewhere else. Are you going to mail it in the rest of the season? Well, I hope you have a little bit more personal integrity than to do that. So how would it affect, Caleb? I guess I'm not really following you. How would
do you think the player that they don't want to lose at the end of the season, though? Do you think Josh Heupel's thinking, this player is going to be a backup for me for a couple of years, but I want him to start by his junior year, but he wants to start now and he's going to look somewhere else at the end of the year and I don't want to lose him. Do you think Josh Heupel's thinking that in his mind?
Well, what Josh Heupel has to do is he has to build a program like Saban's that proves that they can send players to the NFL on a consistent basis like Alabama has done. So once you do that, then you will quickly find that those players don't transfer nearly as easily. Okay, so when that happens, then you don't really care. And listen, if your player X and player Y plays the same position as you, and he started more games and he's played more in the fourth quarter when it really counts, then you need to realize that if that guy's not gone the next year, nothing's going to change unless he gets hurt. So if you want to transfer. But I look at Jacob Warren and Princeton Fant, and I'm not saying this because we do the Vol Report with Jake Warren, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. LASIK, cataract, and their local vision centers are fantastic for your regular checkups. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn brings you the Vol Report with Jacob Warren. I'm not just saying this because Jacob Warren is a part of what we do, but he had every bit the impact that Princeton Fant had last year. Now, Princeton Fant lined up at fullback, and he had the one neat play. I think it was like an end-around play, and he had the sexier plays. But it might surprise a lot of people. Jacob Warren played 75% of the snaps. Now, that was they rotate in and out every drive. That was kind of happenstance and coincidental. But Jacob Warren had every bit the effect of Princeton Fant, and he knows that. That's why he came back. He wasn't worried about Ethan Davis taking his job or some transfer taking his job. He knew that. Now, if he thought that wasn't the case, he's probably in the NFL right now.
Yeah, no, that I understand that. And I think a lot of players understand that a depth chart is not what it used to be. So I just wonder if the transfer portal is kind of a factor. Now, I will say you're right. If anybody shouldn't do this, it's Nick Saban. Because so Nick Saban is lying through his teeth because nobody has the credibility Nick Saban has to say who's starting and who's not, and players will still buy in. I think that. Do you think so? I wonder if this is a meticulous move by Nick Saban, like what you brought up at the beginning, to say basically to make sure his players understand that if they're not starting, that everything's going to be okay. Because I've always wondered if Nick Saban's rants are meticulous. It's not like, okay, we talked about Butch Jones's rant yesterday with the Shy Tuttle fell on a helmet moment when he said, "What do we want out of our media?" That was Butch Jones being thin-skinned and melting down and panicking in the moment, wasn't it? Yes. That wasn't meticulous for his players at all.
It's a big difference between melting down and being having something that's orchestrated and having a goal in mind. No doubt.
Right. And so I think Nick Saban has a goal in mind. I feel like a lot of the times he lashes out at the media is to kind of get his players refocused. The only time I think Nick Saban ever melted down in the media was the DJ Fluker incident in 2013, and he got mad about being questioned about that a lot ahead of the Texas A&M game.
Okay, so let me tell you what this was. This was a clear declaration to Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, Tyler Buckner, and Dylan Lonergan, who's not going to start. But it was a clear declaration that, hey, dudes, if you don't start the first game, this quarterback situation is very unsettled, which should make the rest of the SEC feel very good when they have to play Alabama. And just because guy X starts the season doesn't mean that he's going to start even the second game. That's what this was. I think it's clear as day. This was through the media. He was telling the quarterbacks to keep practicing as hard as you have, because I don't think there's a clear-cut leader. I think that's what it was, 110%. Now, the question I have for you is, should Josh Heupel have handled it that way? With Nico and Joe Milton, should he have continued to push those guys and say, well, I'm not really sure who's going to start. Nico has a lot of talent. Joe Milton has some more experience. Should we be going into the opener with uncertainty who starts at quarterback? Because, listen, I think at the end of the day, Nico is going to be in 3 years. He's going to have a better career than Joe Milton and be a better quarterback. I don't know that he is right now. And as a matter of fact, I don't think he is. But should he have played that up, either via the media or whatever, not named a starter to continue to make those guys push and play hard? Would that have been a wise or stupid decision?
I cannot believe I never thought about that. Good job, Dave. Yeah, you're right. This is a sign that he doesn't have a quarterback. And so he wants all his quarterbacks competing hard because he doesn't know who's good enough to play yet. And none of them look good enough. I don't think that's the case with Josh Heupel. And I think the reason with Joe Milton. Look, Joe Milton has admitted he struggled with confidence already. He's kind of admitted that. I think with Joe Milton, the team has rallied around him Silver team chemistry and Milton's own confidence, I think it helps him for you to come out and say, Milton's my guy. Similar to how, Dave, you've talked a lot about like how everything Jonathan Crompton went through at Tennessee. But the reason he had that second half resurgence in 2009, look, give Lane Kiffin credit. Kiffin stuck his neck out for Crompton the whole time and said, I don't care what happens. Crompton is my guy, period, end of story. And it helped. I think of something like Peyton Manning with the Colts his rookie year. We talk about how mentally tough Peyton Manning was to absorb, to play so badly and learn from it and not melt down. But don't you think part of that was the Colts showing so much confidence in Peyton and saying, we don't care how bad he is, he's our quarterback for the future no matter what?
Yes.
And that he knew he had that backing?
Yes, and I want to pull up Elias's comment. He said, I think the current dynamic is healthier rather than BSing your quarterbacks. I completely agree with you. So, Caleb, I ask you the question, and we got a little sidetracked, but I don't think this is the same situation. I think if you came out and said this is an open quarterback competition in January, because you're right. You have Lane Kiffin say, no question, Jonathan Crompton is the starter. And everybody said, that's crazy. Open it up. Let somebody else get a shot. And they didn't do that. And this is a similar situation. Joe Milton, I believe, is confident, but are there cracks in that confidence because of what happened in the Ole Miss game and losing your job? There should be. I mean, if you're a competitor that fails in competition, then yeah, it's going to affect your confidence a little bit. So I think this is a completely different situation. I would not have played it up a quarterback competition at all, Caleb. Would you have even considered that given the dynamic that's going on right now in Tennessee?
Not at all. Not at all. Because you knew what Joe Milton could do, and it turned out he could do it because he showed it throughout practice, spring and fall camp. And the team, this is his team. Everything I've heard from reports is the team is behind Joe Milton as their quarterback. So I think that's a big deal. Saban, it's different because Saban, I will say, you're in a rock and a hard place with Alabama. This is basically, I don't have a quarterback, but you can't say there's open competition if there isn't, because then everybody's going to run with the fact that you don't have a quarterback. Everybody would run with that immediately. But if you name a starter, you're worried that your other quarterbacks won't go all out to try to take their reps as seriously. I've seen that. Dave, I'll be honest, you've covered practices more than I do, but I know this happens. How often when a player realizes he's a backup does he not take his reps seriously in practice? And then then an injury happens, he's thrown into the starting lineup and he's not ready to go because he didn't take his second team reps as seriously.
Yep. I'm with you. This next topic is totally awesome to me. And this is the day, by the way, that my son left for UMass to pursue a career in making movies. And so it's been kind of a hard day. I've gotten through it. And, Caleb gave me a virtual hug. So we're good. But this topic is very interesting to me, that some movie theaters are going to carry ACC games via ESPN, and you can go there and watch the game and pay $58 for a small bag of popcorn, and you can do all those sorts of things. Is this a good idea? Is this a trend, Caleb Calhoun? Is this something that's going to happen or a gimmick?
It's a gimmick by far. They're trying to cash in on it. This is a threefold goal. They're trying to save three entities at once with this move.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you you're wrong, but go ahead.
I am right. Here's what they're trying to save.
That's crazy.
They're trying to save ESPN because ESPN is bleeding money right now because they made some bad business moves that were based on cable subscriptions in 2011. It's a move to try to save the ACC, and it's a move to try to save movie theaters. Those are three dying brands right now that are like, hey, let's all come together and do something. Dave, why would you watch one game at a theater when you can go to a sports bar and watch your game plus 10 others and socialize and mingle with crowds?
Okay. First of all, you're only going to get the ardent fan, okay? You're going to get the fan that only wants to watch his game and doesn't care if it's a 58-3 blowout in the fourth quarter. Okay, I'll give you that. But you're right. Movie theaters would be willing to open this up. And I've actually taken part in a promotion that's very similar to this. It was the Daytona 500, and they did it in a movie theater. It sold out. It was a ton of fun. Now, they didn't have the usual, expensive popcorn and all that stuff. You could buy that stuff if you wanted to, but they had reasonably priced beer and stuff like that. And it was a ton of fun, Caleb. And listen, I know NASCAR can get long and boring, okay, even at its height in the 2000s. But yeah, I love this. I love this idea. I think it's super cool. I think the idea of going and listen, it's going to be all fans of one school, but like listen, you're selling. This is the next step for a program like Tennessee, because the next step is also building this entertainment district, which they're going to do between Thompson Bowling Arena and Neyland Stadium. Why are you doing that? It's because you have sold out your stadium, and that's not ever a concern. So people are going to come to that entertainment district like they do the Battery for the Atlanta Braves, and they're going to watch the game on screens there. Well, what about in the Tri-Cities for people that say, I'm not going to make the drive, or people in Nashville that says, I'm not going to make the drive because tickets are too hard to get? Put it in a movie theater where all those fans can hang out. It's like a sports bar, but it's a huge screen. I love it. I absolutely love the idea. And I can tell you, if Tennessee was doing that, I would be there. And there would be a book signing for Celebrate 98, which comes out next week, by the way. Have I mentioned that? But I think it's super cool. I'm surprised you don't like it. It'd be awesome.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, the Daytona 500. One, it's the biggest NASCAR event of the year because it kicks off the NASCAR season. Well, it used to be until they did the Chase Cup, which if you guys are wondering what the college football playoff will do to college football, look at what the Chase Cup did to NASCAR. So that's.
I hope you're wrong, but there is a chance of that.
Yes. But that was because it was the kickoff of NASCAR season. It was right after the Super Bowl when football season ended. I mean, that was the biggest NASCAR event of the year, far and away, bar none. And it's the only NASCAR event of the day. College football, if this was the Super Bowl, you'd have me. If this was a national championship game, you'd have me. This is Virginia versus Pittsburgh at a movie theater.
Okay. But is it a success if they fill up half the seats? Because Virginia-Pittsburgh is not a sexy matchup. If they fill up half the seats, then do you think Tennessee-Florida would fill up 100% of the seats in West Knoxville for those that aren't going to Gainesville this year?
No, because if I couldn't go to the game myself, I wouldn't want to be in a theater where I'm only watching that game. I want to go to a spot where I can watch multiple games, where I can watch that game, but then watch a bunch of other games that are happening at the time. The sacrifice you make with going to a football game is that you don't get to have your ear tuned into other games going on. If I'm not going,
my 25-year career can attest to that for sure. I've been through a lot of games that I didn't want to be at because better games were being played. But at the time, I didn't have a cell phone that could stream. So there may be another game that I want to watch, and I've got it right there. But I'm with and put up a couple of smaller screens on the side. But the thought of it being that big, man, I'm all in. I think that's super cool.
Okay, so you know what you do? Okay, here's what you do. Get a sports bar with a theater-sized screen on one wall. And then you can still sit at the bar, watch the theater on the wall, and then watch a bunch of other games on smaller TVs around. But you're still sitting at a bar, sitting at a table, conversing and mingling with people, whatever. This is because, and a lot of sports bars are doing this, by the way. When I go to a lot, they actually have a giant projector for their local teams. So I got to be honest, that works. But then you can watch all these other games around. That's the way to do it. But a theater where it's like, a theater is designed for you to only keep your focus on that screen and nothing else. Today's generation, my generation too, we're too distracted. We can't keep our focus on one thing. And it's just not going to work. I would much rather sit at a bar and watch 10 games while the game I care about the most is one of them. And as a Titans fan, I can tell you, I do that all the time. I go to bars on NFL Sunday. I watch the Titans, but every other NFL game is on.
I love it. I love the idea. I love the concept of having someone like a local barbecue restaurant having a little, $9 barbecue food that you could have. And how about, and listen,
I'd rather go to the restaurant. with the TV
Oh, and how
on at
about
the
this?
restaurant.
Smoky Mountain Red said, how about a 3D model? Does that win you over anymore? Oh,
Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right, you're giving me something here. You give me something to work with. But here's the thing: in about you want to get ahead of the curve. You really want to get ahead of the curve, Dave? ESPN business move right now. Maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I should patent it. Start selling 3D glasses where you don't have to watch it in a theater. You put on the glasses and you're immediately like virtual reality 3D in the middle of the stadium watching the game.
Well, then you could just watch the game. Oh, okay. But would you still be at the theater?
No, you don't have to go to the theater. You can do it from the confines of your home.
Let's get back to the theater thing.
My move is better.
Listen, your concept of
Some
doing
Black Mirror stuff.
Your concept of doing a sports bar is bad, and here's why. Because 75%.
What do you mean a concept? It already exists.
Yeah, 75% of the people. I don't watch. I like to watch the Dallas Cowboys if I'm not working on Sunday, which I usually am. But if they're not on TV, well, I'm going to buy an NFL Sunday ticket this year. But when I haven't, and I've gone to a sports bar to watch the Cowboys because they weren't on local television, I got to tell you that 75% of the sports fans at a sports bar are schmucks. Okay, because they're basically two types of fans stand out to me, especially if we wear any gear as a family to go watch the Cowboys play. They want to talk trash because they think every Cowboy fan is a bandwagon fan, which I'm not. I could name the starting lineup from the 92 team on the offensive line. So I'm not. But most people think most Cowboy fans are bandwagon fans. And I hate being around the bandwagon fans that aren't sure who the backup quarterback is. So those are the two types of schmucks that I deal with when I go to a sports bar. I hate going to a sports bar. I will purchase NFL Sunday ticket. And by the way, my son gets a student discount, so it's only $129. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to a sports bar because the risk of somebody being drunk or them not being able to get the audio where I can hear it. I'm sure Tennessee fans have been down that road before, and not in Knoxville, but maybe where you are. I'm sure there are times that you haven't been able to get the game, and at least, and even more so, the audio up in front of you. That's not something I'm all about, Caleb. I want to be focused in on my team. Now, I don't have a problem with seeing other scores and highlights, but I'm not a red zone guy. I'm not. I want to watch the game unfold and evaluate it. And
yes, because you're trying to evaluate the actual nuances and the details of the game. But if you're a casual fan, you like to watch. First of all, with fantasy football, you watch more games now. With betting, you watch more games. I got money on a few games. I'd like to watch them all at once, see what's going on, and and I'd like to make my money back that I lost last week. And maybe if I keep losing, I won't be able to afford to go to a sports bar anymore or a theater to watch the games.
I'll give you this too. And all those on the message board that have an artificial hip, the seating in sports bars is incredibly uncomfortable. And by the end of the first quarter, my butt is hurting incredibly bad.
Oh, wait, I got an idea. Okay, another one with virtual reality. A collection of fans like online in a chat room can be like, hey, let's all watch the game together. Like on the message board, you put on like a virtual reality helmet and you're next to the guy and y'all are all watching the game together, like as if you're at the game with the fan next to you. You're next to the guy in the chat room.
Yeah, I like the theater idea better. But
theater idea is terrible. It's
Caleb
not going to work.
He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit the like and subscribe button. Turn the notifications on. David Leverton up. Philip Crosby with the coolest story ever is up on the Celebrate 98 series. And we got a new show coming up that we're excited about. I'll tell you more about that. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation